Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. My name is Blair, or the Illuminati, and today we're taking a look at another MLM, Pampered Chef. And this one, before we get super into it, this one kind of hits a little bit home for me because I'm 90% sure as a child, my mom was either involved in Pampered Chef or she at least bought some of the products. And I don't ever remember her being a seller, but I do know she purchased products from her girlfriends and stuff like that. So I only know that because we used to have some Pampered Chef shenanigans running around. So obviously as I got older to find out they're an MLM, I go, shoot, I've been infected. But anyway, just to kind of put this as a side note, just to start this video off, Pampered Chef is not as crazy or as intense as other MLMs we've witnessed here on the channel. We're talking about kitchenware, you know what I mean? They've only got about 50,000 consultants. It is still a ton, but I guess I'm just so used to seeing Amway and Herbalife numbers and the shitty things that those companies have done, so these guys are relatively tame in comparison. Now, although they aren't as large or, as massive or whatever, they are still an MLM, so they still have some shenanigans that they're doing that are not quite right, but we're gonna take a look at it. But I just want to let you guys know, we're not looking, for crazy stories of people talking about their parents' deaths to try and monetize that to make Herbalife take off, or, drowning their baby to sell Young Living. I don't know, we're not doing those kinds of things in this video, so it's gonna look really tame for this channel, but this is a video a lot of you guys wanted me to look into and take a peek at this MLM and what they've been doing behind the scenes, so here we are. Let's get into it. So, Doris Christopher founded Pampered Chef in 1980, following in Tupperware's footsteps with the whole home cooking MLM party demonstrations thing. Now, their website doesn't use the word empowering on their About Us description, which is absolutely shocking, I know, but instead they say, "We celebrate the power that meal times have to become something more, a way to transform relationships, share stories, create traditions, and build happier and richer lives." But with today's expectations, we know finding the mealtime win can be difficult. We are here to help bridge that gap between the ideal mealtime and the realities of today. We do this through our distinctive, high-quality kitchen tools, parties that show you how to make delicious time-saving recipes, and the opportunity to join our supportive international community of more than 50,000 consultants. Now, they are an MLM, so I'm not going to hold my breath here. Right off the bat, there's a bit of a discrepancy. Their website states that they have over 50,000 consultants on the About Us page, but on their newsroom release page, they've stated 40,000. If they said over 40,000 or just under 50,000, I wouldn't be so nitpicky, but, they said over 50,000, and 10,000 is a lot of people to suddenly lose, but it's just something worth noting that their numbers are not completely accurate, and they show that on their own website between two pages, but anyway, you pretty much get the idea. Pampered Chef doesn't have the long, complicated history that we're used to seeing, so let's just dive right into the products. I'm mostly going to cover their basic products so it's easy to compare with other websites. So let's start simple and go with a vegetable peeler. And again, super basic. It's a product that's pretty hard to mess up. There's nothing crazy unique from what I see either, though in the description it says it has a swivel blade so you can peel from either side. It's $12. At Target, an OXO swivel peeler is $8. A blue, fancy-looking Williams-Sonoma peeler, however, is also $12. So I guess they're not crazy overpriced, but Williams-Sonoma is also not exactly known for being cheap or anything. But yeah, do what you will with that number. So then I get to the pans. For $210, you can get a single 12-inch stainless steel non-stick skillet. Whew, that's expensive. I can try and find collections for that price, and even if I find some seriously professional brands, the highest retail price I've seen is about $175, and that's Williams-Sonoma's suggested price, and they're actually selling it for $130, so it's still nowhere near $210. I looked into what cookware professional chefs use, and I saw something called La Crusette mentioned quite a few times. For a non-stick 12-inch skillet, it's $135, and even for their most expensive signature skillet, it's $205. And this is from a French brand that's from 1925 that's been used by master chefs for years, and Pampered Chef is going to tell me that they're better than that, and somehow Pampered Chef's quality is higher than theirs? Well, they would most certainly want you to think so with that price tag. So for laughs, let's look at another company I saw on the list that chefs use, Zwilling? I don't know. Big surprise here. Pampered Chef is still more expensive, but that's usually the problem with MLMs, is they have to charge more to pay the pennies to their downline because they're not giving them a proper wage to begin with, let's just be honest. So as I was doing my research and honestly trying to find a way to justify these prices, I noticed a couple of things. So the first one is that they do have a history of charitable giving. Plenty of MLMs say they give to charity and don't, or give such a minute amount that it's honestly insulting. But Pampered Chef actually follows through. They claim to have donated about $27 million to Feeding America, which is a pretty reputable charity as far as I can tell from Charity Navigator. So I actually do have to give them credit on that. And I know I don't like to show MLM's mercy here on the channel, but I'm not going to conceal a good that a company has done either. But just to be clear, that does not negate the bad. Now, beyond their website, I actually found that they have a YouTube channel. It's not tiny, but it's not huge. It sits around 36,000 subscribers, and it's probably most of it is their Hunbots, honestly. Now, on one of their YouTube commercials, Pampered Chef targets teachers. They say how great it is that you can run the business during the summer or in your free time, and how one of the women, Angelique, says she's been a teacher for over a decade and a Pampered Chef consultant for 3. In that 3 years, she states she's never felt so spoiled, lavished, and special. And apparently the Pampered Chef get-together had her feeling that way because in her words, I realized I loved recognition. And damn, is that fucking depressing to hear. Like honestly, she's a teacher and she goes to an MLM and she says that she realized she loves recognition because of the MLM. Like that, so many problems I could dig into with that, or maybe she just has really low self-esteem, I don't know, but it is a shame. We do need to talk about how, generally speaking, MLMs prey on people, whether it is their insecurities, the fact that they need money, or their low self-esteem. They do these things and they coddle you to make you feel special and noticed, and that's how they kind of sink their claws into you, honestly. Getting told you're doing great every time you recruit a downline, you meet superficial rewards, you encourage this kind of community and this mentality, and it makes people want to stay. To be fair, being a teacher can be an absolutely thankless job, and I'm sure of it. It's not like students are going to thank her for being the teacher, for having an amazing, well-planned lesson every day, you know? But it's sad because we know she didn't sign up necessarily for the money. She signed up to feel cared about, as she's saying. And now she's probably scamming other people in her downline, or she's probably getting scammed herself to some degree. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying Angelique shouldn't be confident. She absolutely deserves to feel important, valued, confident, all of that. But there are other ways to get that validation that don't involve joining an MLM. Like, maybe join a club or start one. Could be yoga, a book club, something else that has to do with women around her, her friends, and things they interest. Maybe have some virtual parties without the sales aspect, or house parties when it's safe, obviously, and to be a part of the community you live in and work with to get to know people better. Again, these get-togethers, whether they are in person or virtual, depending on when you're watching this video, because who knows, maybe we're just going to be stuck in quarantine like this forever and never go outside again, but maybe we will one day. Who knows? But you shouldn't really have to resort to an MLM to feel like you belong somewhere. That just kind of hurts my heart, just personally, and I feel really bad for her. But, of course, aside from this ad that was targeted at teachers, we also have the classic Why Start a Pampered Chef video on their YouTube channel. They have their consultants or actors, I don't know which, go on about how they can do this whenever in their own time. And first of all, you can't. I'll get into this in a bit more detail later, but there are a minimum amount of sales that each person has to have to remain active. So the idea of doing this whenever is deceptive because there are still deadlines and there is still work that has to be done, and forcing family and friends to buy overpriced pots and pans constantly doesn't sound like easy work to me. After learning how Pampered Chef felt about themselves with these advertisements, I wanted to see what others had to say. And one of the first things I found was a Bon Appetit article. Amanda Shapiro wrote this article, and well, early on I kind of had a big issue with it. Bon Appetit states, like Tupperware, Avon, and Mary Kay, Pampered Chef is a multi-level marketing company. No, it's not a pyramid scheme, those are illegal. And again, it's just something about that just doesn't vibe with me the right way. Like, just because something is illegal doesn't mean it doesn't happen. Like, did you guys know that murder is illegal? So yeah, now that it's officially illegal, no more murders anywhere in the US. I thought I'd just let you guys know. It's been in place for a while. People seem to not be following that law, but according to this logic, it can't happen because it's illegal. So there you go, guys, case closed. Now, sometimes satire can be very convincing, and I've even made that mistake a couple times in the video. I think I actually ate the onion a couple multi-level Monday videos ago, like a couple weeks ago. I think I actually ate the onion in a video, which, God, when you guys pointed that out in the comment section, I was so embarrassed, but it happens. Now, maybe this is satire, but nothing else in this article reads as satire to me. And Bon Appetit doesn't really seem like the type of place for satirical articles, so it looks like they are genuinely condoning multi-level marketing despite its abysmal fail rates and the amount of people that suffer from them. So it's kind of a yikes. But this isn't a video on Bon Appetit, which, you know, if you guys watch Philip DeFranco or anything, you've probably seen some details about them, but this isn't about them. This is about Pampered Chef. So Amanda continued, stating that she'd never understand the Pampered Chef experience until she hosted one herself. Amanda hosted a party with a Hunbot, Karen, as her consultant, and yes, her name is Karen, but it is spelled C-A-R-Y-N, not K-A-R-E-N. But anyway, here's a bit about Karen. With 3 kids, she had no time for another job and no time to cook, until she discovered Pampered Chef. Now she does parties a few times a month and is an advanced director, which is very impressive, but also less than halfway up the 9-step ladder of this multi-level marketing company. Past consultant, future director, and director are still quite far from national executive director, but being director means having a full team of consultants, people you've personally recruited. Every month, Karen and her team have to meet certain sales goals, and Karen can only move up the ladder by selling more products, recruiting more consultants, and helping them sell more products. A PC publicist tells me later that Karen has 150 consultants and 9 directors on her team, which means she has brought a lot of people into the Pampered Chef universe. So the first thing to think about, obviously, so when it comes to a pyramid scheme, by traditional classical default, a pyramid scheme focuses on recruiting more people into your downline, not selling a product. And the second any MLM places some sort of gain to the consultants by gaining more consultants, aka getting your downline, you start to slowly creep into this very delicate and dangerous territory of, is it still an MLM or is it becoming a pyramid scheme? So to see that just casually referenced in the article saying recruiting more consultants, that raises a huge red flag to me. Now, I obviously cannot for sure verify at this current time with the information that I have and what I can research to say that Pampered Chef is a pyramid scheme, but when you see something like that, it most certainly throws the company into a very, very gray area, and it makes me quite uncomfortable. And then the other part of this is obviously Karen, who really sounds like a classic stereotype, not totally anti-vax crazy, at least not by this appearance, type Hun to me. If Karen were so fantastic at selling these products and that was what the company was all about, then I'd be fine. No complaints. But in order to work your way up, it means having consultants, a downline. Amanda said it herself. We just went off about this. Like, do I need to pull up that clip from The Office again? This is pyramid scheme like. It's very awkward, it's very shady. But again, just because it's illegal doesn't mean it can't exist. It's just like murder, right? That's illegal. So no one's been murdered this year at all in 2020, right? Because it's illegal. There we go. This is the kind of logic they use, and it's very naive, manipulative, and it's kind of a brain dead way to like think about it. In Amanda's words, but enough about Karen, it's time to cook. We're making pasta, but not just any pasta. We're making part pasta, part zoodle in something called a rock crock, and we're cooking in it. Wait for it, the microwave. My food editor friends in the room grow pale, but to everyone's surprise except Karen's, it comes out 16 minutes later, nicely al dente and a little soupy from the kitchen stock it was cooked in. So, first, 2 things. 1, a little soupy? That's not really a descriptor I would use when I'm describing amazing pasta. Second of all, 16 minutes. I don't know what kind of pasta they were using, but zoodles or zucchini noodles take about 5 minutes to cook when I googled that shit. So wouldn't it have saved time to do it on like the stove in boiling water? There's literally a reason why Gordon Ramsay throws away microwaves on Kitchen Nightmares. If you want to use it for frozen meals, whatever, do your thing. But like for pasta and zoodles, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm far behind in my thinking process and this is the new way to do things. Make your zoodles in the microwave and I am just way behind on new cooking trends. Maybe that dish was amazing and I am absolutely missing out on microwave zoodles, but just the tone of the article seems weird and it kind of gives me the vibe that it was almost like an unsponsored like ad deal or something. It's just weird. Something about it just doesn't add up to me. And for the record, I think microwave zoodles are gross. I don't even like regular zoodles. Give me the fucking pasta. But if you prefer zoodles or have to have zoodles because maybe you're dieting or something like that, let me know. Do microwave zoodles sound appealing to you? I don't know. Let me know. Amanda says watching Karen cook is like watching a magician. She compares what she does to juggling and says she fantasizes about starting a company that comes to your house and teaches basic knife skills. Like, Amanda, you work for Bon Appetit, an extremely popular magazine and YouTube channel, although not recently, judging by the 6 million subscribers at the time. So why is Amanda writing this as if she's never watched a professional chef before? And I don't know, maybe I'm just being way too critical and I'm just looking into this way too hard and I don't have to. But this entire article legitimately reads like a Pampered Chef ad, and it just really bothers me because I didn't see anywhere where it says ad and you have to disclose that shit. It just does not feel genuine to me. As someone reading this, trying to extract information from it, it does not feel like this is a genuine person writing a genuine experience. This feels forced. But anyway, back to Karen. She specifically admitted she only rose to her position by getting a downline. And again, if that doesn't scream pyramid scheme to you, then I don't know. It just doesn't add up. Again, just like the article, none of it adds up. Now, after that weird article with a literal Hunbot named Karen, I decided to try and find some other opinions. One blog from Redhead Mom went over her experience as a former seller in a post called "Dear the Pampered Chef, Where Are the Ethics?" And that obviously caught my attention. Redhead Mom, Shannon, says, "A few years ago, I signed up to sell the Pampered Chef products. I sold products for a few months, but couldn't really get into salesman mode. The problem was selling something that I wasn't really sold on myself. If I love and use a product, I can easily promote it because I believe in it. At the time, I didn't really understand or use stoneware and wasn't about to promote something I couldn't stand by, so I didn't." The Pampered Chef was all about promoting stoneware at the time. My director was disappointed, to say the least. And I feel for her in this position, because it's gotta be pretty hard to know that you're trying to sell overpriced kitchenware, let alone kitchenware you don't even believe in or fully understand how to use. Now, this next part I'm going to trim down just a bit because it's quite a long story, but this is what Shannon witnessed when one of her friends hosted a party. The consultant, who also happened to be a director, set aside a section to talk about selling the Pampered Chef products and how it benefited her, and so on and so on. She passed around a copy of a check for a little over $4,000 and said she made that in a month easily. What? That is not true, and almost anyone who has ever sold anything with a network marketing company knows this. She then tried talking to my friend into signing up to be a consultant and that she would have all of us host a party for her to support her in her new endeavor if she chooses to sign up. I was starting to fume a little bit, but still refrained from saying anything. I was counting down the minutes, wondering if we could get cooking and looking at the products. She then said directly to my friend, but talking to everyone, that if she signed up before the end of the weekend, she would receive $250 in free products. Okay, that's it. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I caught her attention and said, "Isn't it true that you need to sell so many dollars in products before you earn the $250 in free products?" She stumbled onto her words and said, "Yes, but it really isn't that hard to do." Okay, maybe for 1 out of every 10,000 people. I didn't care for this lady or the lack of information she presented in her sales pitch. However, my friend and her sister decided to sign up that night. Now, here's the thing. Apparently, if you don't choose those $250 worth of free products in time, you lose them. After a month or two, this friend went online to receive her products and the Pampered Chef closed her out of her own account. Her business had slowed down too much, and so Pampered Chef essentially just fired her. They closed her account and never gave her the free products she worked so hard to even get. Now again, this is a testimonial, this does come from a blog, so take it with a grain of salt, with as much or as little trust in it as you want to. This is just something I'm presenting as someone who claims that this is their real experience with the Pampered Chef. But ultimately, all you can do is take this person at their word because that is all they have to offer. But again, with all the research on MLMs and the various companies and how they lay out all of their processes and stuff like that, this does sound pretty typical, but I did want to see what else was out there. Now, because this company is a bit smaller, there's not as much about it. But I did manage to find a pretty unbiased pros and cons list, so without getting into the nitty-gritty details, here's the pros and cons list from Brandon Gale. So the pros are as follows. You earn rewards for purchases, no minimum hours, you can buy products at a discount, you don't require a massive inventory to get started. The commission is reasonable, 20% parties can be virtual, and Pampered Chef parties are the only way to buy the products. You don't have to know how to cook, you don't have to be a director to earn points to a vacation. The catalog is consistent and you earn a real paycheck. So let's just tackle the pros, shall we? You don't need a massive inventory to start. Well, the very first con on the con side of the list is that you have to pay for a starter kit, and the lowest price kit is $109. That's the cheap one. So sure, you don't have to buy a giant inventory for yourself, but absolutely, like with any other MLM really, you do gotta put that money down. Second of all, no minimum hours? Yes, there are. Because the second con says that there is a minimum sales level you must maintain to remain active. So sure, perhaps in one weekend or in a couple hours you could earn that minimum sales thing, but maybe you don't, and now that means you have to work full time. Undoubtedly, there is a minimum, even if it's unsaid, even if Pampered Chef just isn't giving you the number. It does clearly exist because you've got to spend hours in order to potentially make those sales. The commission, the discount, the rewards, I won't really argue with that one. That comes with MLM territory. But that doesn't mean those rewards are always fantastic or possible, or that they aren't conditional. But yes, the commission is pretty standard. And as for that last pro, you earn a real paycheck, like what, they're going to send me a fake one? Like, do companies just send fake money out there and just say it's your paycheck? Like, that's a stupid non-reason. Like, a real paycheck as opposed to what, Brandon? Come on now. Now for the cons, we've got this. You have to buy a starter kit. You have to maintain a minimum sales level to be active. You need a recruiter to sign up because that's your upline. You lose your career sales figures if you go inactive. You'll pay for self-employment tax. It creates a family and friends issue, and the most important one, you don't have a guaranteed income. And listen, I don't have a guaranteed income. I'm a YouTuber. My paycheck absolutely fluctuates from month to month. Demonetization, it's a real thing. Guaranteed income isn't. But at least YouTube isn't going to fire me for making content if I have a video that performs poorly. They won't lock me out of my account because I took a break from YouTube or that I didn't meet some weird fucking sales quota for that month or some shit. These are just like non-pros that seem to just be playing down the true cons in the situation. Given all this minimum quota talk, let's move on to actual numbers. As far as I can tell, it looks like the Pampered Chef has actually refused to provide income disclosure statements, and because they believe it will delegitimize their business. And seriously, I found a long-ass letter to the FTC where they wrote the conclusion about how they are a very legitimate business. Like, if you have to write a letter to the FTC about how legitimate you think you are, then you may not be as legitimate as you think. So without an income disclosure statement, that does leave us to do some math on our own. And as you guys know, I'm not fantastic with math. So if I do the fucky wuckies and make a mistakey wakey, I'm sure there's at least 1,000 of you that will let me know in the comment section. But I'm gonna try and get this right anyway. That pan we mentioned earlier is $210. So for easy math's sake on them, and on me, we're gonna say it's $200. Pampered Chef consultants make 20% if they sell one of those, so that's $40. So in order to make bare minimum wage in the US, they would have to sell 30 of those pans, and that is a pan a day, an overpriced $200 pan every single fucking day just to barely scrape by. And hey, let's say they want this to be a part-time gig, just 20 hours. That's still 15 pans a month. At first, maybe that's doable. Maybe you have 15 friends with money to burn on a $200 pan, but what about the next month? And the next month? And the next month? Pampered chefs say their tools are built to last, to be passed down, high quality, etc. So it's not as if those same friends are coming back to you the next month to purchase another $200 pan, right? Because why would they need one? This was an investment piece that's supposed to last and be passed down and blah, 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 blah. So unless they're lying and the pans are really just garbage quality, now we're facing a different problem where you don't have a dependent base of people who need your products. Just basing it off that alone, it just kind of shows how unrealistic that is. Just to meet the minimum, like just barely surviving, you have to sell 30 $200 pans to make it. Like, what the fuck? That is insane. Anyway, Pampered Chef doesn't have lawsuits, health risks, or even deaths like we've seen with other MLMs, so I don't have as nearly much of a problem with them as I do other MLMs, so I can see why this company flies under the radar and doesn't get a lot of crap online. Regardless, they are still an overpriced MLM, with their main customer being their employees. They still care about the downline, about recruitment, and telling the Huns they have to sell to continue to be part of their company. Companies shouldn't work this way. I don't care if they have a mountain of lawsuits to their name. Hell, the few I saw were just Pampered Chef suing other companies or individuals for copyright or company secrets. The point is, MLMs as a whole are harmful. They operate in the same way. They're scummy and they do business all the same. So, with all of this being said, that's where I'm going to end today's video. And like I said, this isn't like some crazy weird video where they've got a ton of secret hidden lawsuits and really weird scammy things. This one's pretty run-of-the-mill, but run-of-the-mill as an MLM is still generally bad. A lot of you guys wanted me to cover this video, probably to see if I could find some dark, spooky, scary skeletons in their closet, but the reality is the scariest skeleton in their closet is the fact that they still operate as an MLM. So with that being said, that's the end of today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button, and if you guys want, subscribe to the channel for more content like this. If you guys want more content from me, including all the sources I used to create today's video, links for everything will be in the description box down below. So thank you guys again, I love you all, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys!